Have you ever been afraid of taking action on something you'd love because you're terrified you're gonna screw it up, that you're gonna make a mistake and it's gonna be a public humiliation, it's gonna be embarrassing? Maybe it's a creative project or a business you'd love to try and you think, I'd love to put myself out there, but I need to make sure I have the perfect idea. I need to make sure I get it right first. I have a PhD in philosophy, I've written a New York Times best-selling book, and I've made various digital programs over the years, and I still struggle with this when I'm trying something new. If worrying about making a mistake is something that's held you back, I've got 5 ways that I got over this that are gonna help you move forward. Number 1, realize that your public failures are not really public at all. Most people, when they think about public failure, they're worried what their friends, their family, people around them, someone out there on the internet will say about them. Most people do not care at all. Most of the time, our failures or mistakes are basically met with ignorance. Basically, just no one pays attention to it. People are busy. They're not really worrying about crowing over your failures. And probably a lot of the perceived failure is in your mind. Maybe you just write a story and it wasn't quite as good as you thought it was going to be, or you tried that business and it didn't really quite take off the way you hoped, so you try something else. Most people are just envious that you're someone who actually went and did the thing. They're not really worrying about whether you failed or not. So you might as well carry on, do it, and realize that your brain is tricking you. No one's actually worrying about it. Number 2, embrace skill-based wins rather than external wins. Like a lot of people, I was playing a lot more chess than was healthy over the pandemic, and when you play chess, you realize you have to go through so many stinging losses before you get any better. If you just focused on winning when you were trying to learn chess, you would be constantly demotivated, frustrated, angry, and the whole thing would be a miserable experience. The much better way to actually get better, enjoy the process, is to focus on skill-based wins. Start to think about upgrading your skill itself, even if it's by 1% this week. How am I going to learn a new tactic, a new strategy? I'm going to play a move where I usually make a mistake, and I'm going to do that little bit better this time. You're not going to get to perfection anytime soon, or getting to expert stage. That can take years for most things, so you might as well embrace the skill-based wins. That's something you can actually control. It gives you motivation now, and you'll start to feel better as you get the momentum, and that's what's actually fun. Number 3, change your identity to someone who just gets stuff done. When we are scared of failing, it's often because we have built a story for ourselves about who we should be or who we are already. So someone might sit down to write for the first time, and they already have an identity of, I'm a good writer, I was a great writer at school, or I've got a great vocabulary and I've got great ideas, so I'm going to write an amazing book and everyone's going to think I'm a great writer. If you already go in with that ego, that identity, anything that doesn't live up to that is going to feel like a massive failure. It's going to shatter your confidence, and then you're going to be paralyzed with fear of getting it wrong. Whereas if you just make your identity, I am someone who writes, I am someone who writes stories, I am someone who writes blogs, and just make it your focus of, I'm going to publish a blog this Friday because I'm someone who writes blogs, and start to take pride in building up the chain itself rather than I am great artist, great writer, whatever, great business person, and then you're constantly scared of failing or doing anything wrong, putting a foot wrong, because you've built up an ego and identity for yourself. Number 4, realize the illusion of loss aversion. There is a principle that Daniel Kahneman talks about called loss aversion, where because we as human beings still have these old lizard brains that are terrified of being ostracized from society or being murdered by a saber-toothed tiger, we are terrified of what we could lose. That's why most people are more scared of losing just a handful, small sum of money, rather than thinking about all the potential gains they could have if they took some risk or did certain ventures that might gain them a lot more in the future. We are wired to tightly hold on to what we have and fear losing it. In the realm though of things like creative projects or trying out a business idea, as long as you're not betting the farm on it, putting everything on the line, or say talking to someone at a party, the losses actually are minimal. It's only your brain that's telling you it's this huge social humiliation, but if you talk to that person and it was kind of awkward, didn't go well, you haven't actually lost anything. If you put something out there, you wrote a book and it wasn't that well received, or it doesn't get published, you haven't really lost anything. It's cost you some time, but hopefully that's time you wanted to spend on that anyway. But really, your big magnified fear of this is huge world-ending embarrassment is a complete illusion. And you're not focusing on what are the gains if I just really engage with this and sharpen my skill and got better at it. How amazing would my life be in 6 months or a year if I just focused on improving all the time at this? How much more fun would I have? How much more joy and creative fulfillment would I have? Start to bring those gains to the forefront of your mind and minimize the losses, and then you won't obsess about making mistakes so much. Number 5, and this is a big one, but realize that people only remember the great stuff you do. Go and look at your favorite YouTuber or an author you love who's written like 50 books. You'll realize often an author is acclaimed for about 3 great books, maybe sometimes 1 great book they wrote. Maybe a YouTuber you love had 100 terrible videos, and then they had one that everyone loved and everyone went, oh, this person's amazing, let's go watch them. There's often, people don't really pay any attention to the mediocre, the bad stuff. They might love an author, even though that author has made 10 horrible books, but 1 book they really love. They might love a movie director because of 1 particular film, and they don't even know any of that director's other films because they never bothered to see them because they weren't interested, but they think, I love that director because that movie was a masterpiece. That movie was amazing. Or that song was incredible. So people are just, again, back to point number 1, but people are not focusing on the mediocre, the bad stuff. They only really pay attention to the great stuff. So you might as well get stuck into the process and start making more stuff so that you can get to the great stuff. As Adam Grant says in his book, Originals, all prodigious creators were often the ones who made the most masterpieces, who made the best work. Mozart wrote hundreds of symphonies. There's only a few that you could probably hum right now, or Beethoven as well. Picasso made thousands of paintings, and there's, you know, a handful that we all know and really think about when we think of Picasso. So just start focusing on producing a lot of stuff so that you get to better stuff later on. Let me know in the comments below an area of your life you've been held back because you're scared of making a mistake. And hey, look, one mistake you really don't need to make that's just so, because it's just unnecessary, is to forget to subscribe to the channel. I mean, there's a button here, you can just subscribe, it's just a little click, and you know, neither you or I need to make that mistake, so do subscribe, and I'll see you real soon. Bye bye.